Calculating percentages. A percentage is the result obtained by multiplying a quantity times a percent. We can think of this as a number times a percent, so that's n times p percent. The most frequent way we see these percentages is we'll be asked to find p percent of n. When you're asked to find p percent of n, you're being asked to find the percentage. Which means you're being asked to multiply the number or quantity by p percent. Since we don't really multiply by a percentage outright, and instead convert the percent to either a fraction or a decimal, there's two main methods for calculating a percentage. The first is to convert that percent to a fraction. So we have our 75%, and 75% is equal to 75 over 100. And usually for finding percentages, we're not going to simplify these fractions. You could, but you don't have to, because we'll simplify as part of this multiplying process. So we're going to multiply 75 over 100, which is the fraction form of our 75%, times 50. And since we're multiplying by a fraction, let's write that 50 as 50 over 1. In this step, it can be nice to simplify by eliminating any common factors between our numerators and our denominators. So we can either look at the numerators and denominators of our same fractions, but we can also compare the numerators to any of the denominators. So let's see. 50 and 100 definitely have some common factors that jump out to me. In fact, the greatest common factor between 50 and 100 is 50. So I can divide 50 by 50 and divide 100 by 50 and divide out my 50 and be left with just this 1 and this 2. Now I'll multiply across. 75 times 1 is 75, and 2 times 1 is 2. Then you want to pay attention to what the question's asking for. Often if they're asking for 75% of 50 or a percentage, they want it in decimal form. So we need to figure out what 75 divided by 2 is. There's a lot of mental math tricks for this, but if you're just like, I'm not sure, we can divide 75 by 2 using long division. 2 goes into 7 3 times. 7 minus 6 is 1. Then we'll bring down our 5. 2 goes into 15 7 times, which gives us 14. 15 minus 14 is 1. And then we'll need to carry down a 0. And 2 goes into 10 5 times. And 10 minus 10 is 0. So 75% of 50 is 37 5/10. Another method for calculating percentages is to first convert the percent into a decimal. So we have 75%, which is equal to 75 over 100 as a fraction. And to continue converting that to a decimal, we'll actually divide by that 100. So we get 75 hundredths. Once you've converted to a decimal, we'll then multiply this decimal representation of our percent by the quantity. So we have 50 times 0.75. And then we'll multiply this. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. Then we're moving on to the tens place. So we need our placeholder 0. 7 times 0 is 0. And 7 times 5 is 35. We'll add these numbers together, so we have 0 plus 0 is 0, 5 plus 0 is 5, 2 plus 5 is 7, and then we have our 3. If we look back up here at our factors, we had 2 decimal places total, so we need to move our decimal point over 2. So 75% of 50 is 37 5/10. Deciding between method 1 and method 2 is a matter of personal preference, as well as just kind of looking at the problem and the numbers and figuring out whether it's easier to work with the decimals or easier to work with the fractions.